Hey guys, Shad here with Uncharted Off-Road. 6 days before I leave for King of the Hammers. I'm leaving next Thursday morning about 4 in the morning to head down to El Cajon to have DuneHoon tune my car. I know it doesn't look like it's that far along, but we're literally probably less than 15 hours of labor left in the prep. Finally got the front axle, new front axle, all the fabrication done. It hung in the car, all the wiring harness back in the motor, the engine wiring harness back in the car, just down to a few little things. A new light, Baja Designs, chase light, brackets done, just need to bolt that thing in. A couple little bolts in the interior. Of course, always waiting on parts. You know, you think you have everything on your list. You know, when you start these preps and you get to something and you're like, oh boy, we need to replace that part. And you know, it's part of what we do. We beat the living you know what out of these things when we go out there, and sometimes that right foot gets a little heavy. So we have all the parts, we have everything here that we need, and now it's just time to grind it out and get it done. Hope to have the car running and driving by Sunday this weekend. Today's the 21st. I do leave on the 28th, bright and early in the morning, so don't have a whole lot of time left. But you know, when we get to lake bed, we have, you know, 10 days before the race or 9 days before the race. So we have a bunch of time to do shakedowns and minor things out there. You know, we set up a big party tent, 20 by 20 party tent that becomes our garage for 11 days, camp in our motorhomes and live the desert lifestyle that KOH brings. You know, we had a break last year, so we didn't get to finish last year's race. So we didn't have a lot of miles on the car. However, you know, it's just, when I bought this car back, you know, it had been abused and maybe not taken care of the best. So just every year we just keep upgrading and upgrading and upgrading parts that, you know, the front axle housing was a Currie Dana 60 axle housing, not made for racing at all. It's made to put in your Jeep. That axle probably has 6,000 or 7,000 race miles, maybe 8. I was finally bending a little bit, so it was time to upgrade that thing. Well, a lot of guys are like, well, what are you gonna put back in it? I'm like, well, why wouldn't I put a Currie? It's crazy not to, right? So we went back to a Currie. They make an Extreme 60 now, which has a lot of benefits to it. You know, it's a little bigger round tube. So instead of a 3 1/4 inch tube that we ran in the past, it's a 3 1/2 inch tube. A lot of the guys are running 4 inch tubes. We got away with the 3 1/4 forever, so we went to a 3 1/2. We did add some new trussing to the front end, but the Extreme 60 has a load bolt. A load bolt basically rides behind the ring gear in line with the pinion gear, and that's where all the deflection happens. So what happens is, when you're spiking these gears together, they're wanting to grow apart from each other. So it has a load bolt in there that you basically set the load bolt depth to just about 200 thousandths, maybe 150 thousandths away from the back of the ring gear. So when you have that deflection, it'll come in and hit a brass bolt. Keeps that deflection to a minimum. Not that I've ever lost a front ring and pinion, but it's just some upgrades that Currie's done. The webbing on the center section. My old 60 looks like a Dana 44 compared to this new Currie Extreme 60. It's mind-boggling what they've done over the last, I guess I built this car 15 years ago, and technology changes and Currie's kept up with it, and just super stoked to have them back on board. Super stoked to be able to put a Currie Jeep axle underneath a race car and go out there and give it the abuse that we do in that particular race or any racing, and have it live. This thing's had Currie axles in it since we built it 15 years ago, and I absolutely wanted to put that back in here, and we did. So, you know, there's probably 40 or 50 hours of fabrication just in the front axle housing alone to, you know, make all your mounts, your shock mounts, your pivot mounts, your 4-link mounts. And then I haven't gotten to the steering stuff yet. We'll get to that here this evening or in the next couple days. We've done a bunch of heat management on the car as far as driver and co-driver. This car's always been hot. Race cars are typically hot inside of them. You know, if you make your driver comfortable all day long, you know, it's just one less thing to focus on or take your focus away from what, you know, I need to be doing with the steering wheel and the gas pedal and brake pedal in my hand. So we did a bunch of heat management stuff this year. The car's always needed it. Just, you know, that stuff kind of becomes last minute or last on the list because you need to make sure the rest of the car is dialed in and ready to rock and roll for the race, the pre-run, the qualifying lap. So pretty stoked with the course. There's some real rocks in the EMC this year, and when I mean real rocks, I mean real rocks. rocks that nobody should probably be on at all. The EMC race, we're actually going down Spooners, up Outer Limits is the first rock section. Outer Limits is a trail that will eat cars alive. We get out of that, we get to run by the main pit, and then we get to do King's Veto. EMC's never done King's Veto. The 4400 class, which is the unlimited budget, unlimited, run what you brung class, you know, $750 plus $1,000 cars can barely do this trail. And Dave threw it at us this year, which I'm stoked, man. I think, you know, I'm a rock racer. I'm not just a guy that wants to go beat up a trail that I can drive my JK on, you know, and I got to give it up to Dave and his crew for throwing some big boy trails at the EMC class. I think it's going to separate a lot of guys. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a true test of man and machine in just King's Veto. I bet King's Veto eats up 20% of the cars. And you got to get out of Outer Limits first before you even get to King's Veto. Those are real rock trails. Those are real rock trails. Some of my favorite ones to play on, not King's Veto. I've walked it. I've never driven it yet. I'm obviously going to have to. I don't even know if we'll pre-run that trail, to be honest with you. It's that tough. It's that beat up. It's that hard on the cars. We'll probably have to save the car for the race day going up that particular trail. It's probably, I'm going to guess, but I bet it's not 250 yards long. But boy, is it an animal. It's going to be a challenge. You know, we are going up Jackhammer again this year, where I broke the car last year. If it's as chewed up as it was last year, we will get out and winch a couple times just to save the car. We got to get to the finish line to win, right? You got to get to the finish line to finish, and that's our goal. So we might take a step back and have a different approach. It's about 40 miles, 35 miles longer of a course this year. We're doing 155 miles versus I think last year's course was in the 120, 127-ish. As a rock guy, to get those bigger trails and be able to prove ourselves in those bigger trails in a limited car, you know, the Class 4500 car, we're going in those big boy trails with 37-inch tires, DOT tires. You know, I run Falcon mud terrains, and it's the same tire that you can put on your Jeep, your truck, any of it. There's no advantage there, and again, I'm stoked that we're doing it. The course this year, back to that, is just from qualifying course to the desert laps to the rock course. We get done with all the rocks on the second lap. We have 55 miles of desert to get back to the finish line. So just so in reference, typically we have 17 to 20 miles to get back to the thing. So not only you got to take care of your car so that you can get to that absolute fast section and make sure you can get to the finish line, and you got to have a good car to get there. All right, well, we talked about heat management. We have, you know, the header wrap doesn't last forever, right? You know, exhaust gets super hot. So we rewrapped our headers with some fiberglass style wrapping, pretty typical for heat and exhaust stuff. One of the coolest things we did, the floorboard's really hot. As you can tell, the exhaust kind of runs literally right under your right foot in the passenger side and your left foot in the driver's side. And I've had blisters. Last year I had a blister on my left foot, and that's my brake foot. So we got some stuff from Funk Motorsports. It's actually a UK company. This stuff shipped all the way from United Kingdom. Obviously this was a big sheet, and we'll show you some pictures of what it looks like and where I put it. But really hard to find something, I don't know, I've never seen anything like this, honestly. I couldn't find anything that was this robust. It's pretty cool stuff. I have a lot of expectations out of it. We did it underneath where our feet are, the whole floorboard underneath the floorboard. Put a little air gap in there before our aluminum floorboard, and have high hopes for that. I was having a hard time finding fans because I wanted to run some sort of fan down at our feet or in the cab, and just trying to package that in this car was super tough. So what we ended up doing, and we haven't completed it yet, but we added another additional Parker pumper. So the additional Parker pumper, the new one, will be for our helmets. We have fresh air coming to our helmets so that we're not breathing that dust or having that in our eyes. The original Parker pumper, we say Parker pumper, basically it's a fan motor with a filter that gives us fresh air. So I'm gonna run that down to both of our hills that get extremely hot inside the cab, just to have a little bit more air movement down there. I'm hoping between the header wrap, the new tune, the Funk Motorsports badass heat shielding, that we probably don't need to have the fans, but it's gonna be a longer race. And when you're just clunking along 4 or 5 miles an hour in the trails, that exhaust temp just comes right through the floorboard. Sometimes it just gets in your head, and you know, last year I was having to drive my left foot on top of my right foot just because I had a blister. And again, it just takes your focus off what you're supposed to be doing. It's just one more thing for that. I think the biggest thing that we've done is upgraded the front housing, right? Replaced the front housing. It's kind of here in raw form. It's not all together. Actually just got it together, got it under the car today. You know, we didn't get the axle till New Year's Day. So just been here thrashing on the weekends trying to get that thing done. My axle tube was so bent on the other one. Normally we would build fixtures, bolt the old axle and the fixtures, and then build your new parts to those fixtures. Well, when you got something that's bent and twisted, unfortunately, those fixtures wouldn't work. So kind of had to just go at it old school and just get it done. And it was really cool. I slid the axle underneath here today, and everything just clicked right in. So you're like, yes, that old fabrication brain of mine is still ticking. Other than that, you know, I think the last time we talked about most of the car. I have the rear end together now. The third member's in there with a new polished ring and pinion from Currie, which is a Dana part. We've got a different style drive shaft. We've moved the slip yoke up to the transfer case side and get it out of the rocks down at the pinion. I've moved my driver's seat up. Just, you know, as you get beat down for hours and hours, your body just is no longer in the upright, perfect position. So my vision kind of goes away over the hood. We talked about a new alternator. We've got some new engine wiring harness stuff on that. Really, we're coming together here at the end with a pretty good car, I think. You know, it hasn't been tested yet, but all the components are, you know, even though we have a new front housing, we know it's a Dana 60. We have the Super 60 gear package in it. That stuff's all been tested. So there's really shouldn't be any surprises. So we're really ready just to button it up and head to the lake bed.